have it all figured out right off the bat, right up front. Bubblegum asks, do I have a sketchbook, or do I usually mostly use my iPad? I am an iPad boy, for you discover it along the way. Sometimes over the course of the process of designing, you eventually arrive at a place where, oh, I know how to solve this. So there's no real pressure to like have it all figured out right off the bat, right up front. Bubblegum asks, do I have a sketchbook, or do I usually mostly use my iPad? I am an iPad boy, for sure, these days. I do have a sketchbook. I have several. It's right here. I like it, but I mostly use it for writing down ideas, keeping track of to-do lists these days. And when I really sit down to draw, it tends to be on the iPad. But I do, behind me, deeper into the studio, I have some watercolors and brushes and stuff like that. So sometimes when I need to loosen up and really kind of take a break, I step it back and step back the digital intensity. One of the things that digital is notorious for is just, well, I'm going to call, I think it's officially named this too, choice paralysis. Are you guys familiar with the term? It's like, what color within the visual spectrum that exists would you like to use today, sir? And that can be such a strength, when you want it. But it's very easy to feel lost and overwhelmed when you have the world of complete options before you. There's endless possibilities. So I already have kind of a sketch prepped that I want to take to finish today, based on some of the ideas we were just talking about. But just for the sake of argument, just for fun, I just want to kind of play a little bit before we do that, design-wise. And I'm not really sure where we're going, and so we'll fall back on that other sketch if nothing dramatic or interesting sort of results out of this. But let's give it a shot. So this is going to be the part of the stream where I begin to go a little bit quieter, just to try and wait, what's going on? Stream is good. Get hyped to draw along. Yeah, draw along, please. Gosh, that would be, with all of this, Lightbox is just a blast. I'm not getting paid. I just wanted to do this. Thought it would be a fun challenge, and honestly, I need this, but I think that our community needs moments where we can just like hang out together and have a good time and just celebrate art and each other. And it's been such a miserable year in so many other ways that I think just having something to share together that's not likely to be a nightmare is wonderful. So for me, the greatest goal of this stream and of doing this, I got an emote. I guess I should share it. There you go. Thank you guys for all your subs. Damn, I just got a whole ton of subscribers. I don't even know how that works, but thank you. But I was just saying, the biggest goal of this stream and of this weekend would be for you to leave feeling inspired and excited about your own work. I don't really need you to feel excited about my work. I'm excited about my work, and I hope you will be. But I would just love to pay some of that forward. So that's my hope for even the Jellybox book that I just launched, and it's just that people read it and get excited about the ideas that they have for themselves. Feeling kind of black magey, Final Fantasy's little big hatted dudes. So I'm just gonna sketch around that a little bit and see if there's anything here. For me, so when it's not about solving a problem for a client, right, where I can't do research into what it is that they want, what it is that they need for the project, for the video game, for whatever, it's just about I'm the client now, but I'm also the artist. So now it's about me trying to interrogate my own desires. What do I like? What do I love? What do I want to draw? What's been sort of interesting me lately? And I've been getting into this autumn vibe. I just finished. It was my birthday last week, and for my birthday, I treated myself to my favorite movie of all time. I watched The Fellowship of the Ring, and I felt amazing, good autumnal feelings, and I just love this season, this time of year. I love the color palettes and the the earthy crunchiness. You know, in some ways, the Project Jellybots that I have is very much a spring and summer kind of aesthetic project, and the like sort of fantasy spaces that I sometimes work in, I associate with autumn. So maybe something fantasy-esque. I'll have to do something kind of cute too, something just kind of appealing. Appealing is hard to hit, especially off the bat for me. Some people have a really natural hand with it, and I love it, and I think I've gotten more comfortable with it over time. But it does take a little bit of workshopping sometimes to get it into a space where it just feels good, you know, just really. Sometimes, you know, you look at these like really complicated pieces of sci-fi fantasy art, and they're amazing. They're super complex and impressive. But you forget sometimes that that's not the only kind of like though you can see the hard work there. You know, you can really see exactly how much effort went in. But with simple, appealing character designs that are like cute. A lot of work goes into those, but it's harder to see in the finished result. So maybe if we decide to go down that path today, we'll speak to that a little bit. Somebody had earlier asked about my brushes, so let's talk about that really quick right here while I'm doing this. This is all one brush. This is my Apple Pencil, by the way, little modifier to sort of make it more ergonomic. Definitely recommend that. They sell them for like, I don't know, $5 to $8. You can make your own with like duct tape. Definitely advise sort of making the grip larger, because bearing down on a really tight pencil really can strain your wrist and fingers after a while. That's completely neither here nor there. I really enjoy and recommend this brush. This is called Tara's Oval Sketch, and it is my version, which is the NK. By Dizzy Tara. So if you look up Dizzy Tara on Gumroad, just Google Dizzy Tara brushes. She sells the NK version of this brush on its own. It's just for Procreate, but it's my main go-to. And because I can get extremely precise kind of textured lines with it if I want on the point, but when I tilt it to the side, I can get large fields of soft color. So it's very speedy for me to get everything that I want. Mustache. Teeth. Buy it now, he says. There you go. That's a professional character designer for you right there. Lightbox 2020. Right here. Here it all is. Years of skill and hard work. Art education, all to this point. Buy it now. Buy my brushes. I'm not a big fan of the Procreate default brush set as much as I'd like to be. There are some that I definitely love and use a lot for different effects and stuff like that along the way, and probably by the end of the day we'll get into some of those. But the two main brushes I use are Tara's Oval Sketch and Max Yelichny's Shader Pastel. Look at how beautiful this brush is. Max is great. Look at the texture. It's so nice. Yeah, I get it, just beautiful, and I think that for me, using them both together, they both have a really nice tooth to them, and so they blend really nicely when I want to create blends of color and light and shadow, that's Tara's brush, and then this is Max's, you know, and so I create like fields of soft texture that you'll see in a lot of my work. Max's pack, this is part of, I believe, it's a pastel brush, so Max's pastel brush, I think it's in his sort of small Max pack that he sells, is just like a collection of his best brushes, but that is his shader. Am I in the right? Yeah, pastel by Max Packs. And if you like Max, I like Max. Tune in on Sunday, because we're gonna be he's gonna come guest star for my the color workshop that we're doing on Sunday. Okay, I got a little Stardew Valley soundtrack coming in here. Heck yes. So now I'm thinking, we're talking autumn, this sort of witch hat motif from the Black Mage idea. So I'm combining these two things. I'm thinking Black Mages I really love from Final Fantasy, and the kind of proportions of them are cute. Now I'm thinking autumnal motifs, and my mind wants to see what I can do with mushrooms. So let's see if we can create like a fun riff on like a witch's cap in toadstools. I feel like I'm really, really stepping into Iris Muddy's, not Iris Muddy? Iris Muddy's territory here. Iris, if you're here, I'm sorry. I feel like I've even seen this design from you, so I'm not even sure 100%. But let's just see. Let's see. It won't be like the perfect like peaked triangle hat. Let's sort of, if I were to do the triangle hat, I'd want it to like kind of occupy this space. So let's lower that opacity and just kind of see if we can kind of create a stack of mushrooms that kind of imitates that. Oh. This part of this song is like pure endorphins for me. That little like marimba or whatever. There it is. Crank that. Yes. Love that. This game's soundtrack is made by the guy who designed the entire game. Amazing. What a hero. I just draw. I don't know how to compose beautiful, calming, pleasant music. So it's, you know, I don't know if this is it yet in terms of this design of a hat. There's something to it that I don't hate, but I'll come back to this in a little bit. One thing I know I wanted to do is kind of crank up the process on a piece that I started earlier. And we'll hop around today a little bit. One of the things I do when I start a design just for myself is that I move a lot between one idea and the other. And so things kind of shift and change until I find like where I want to fit, you know? So here is a piece I was working on a couple weeks back, actually. It's been a while. But things have been so crazy. I've been working on the Jellybots art book, which, by the way, plug. Here, I'll make this smaller so that it doesn't overwhelm the, we can move the iPad screen over and you can see the Jellybots art book. Buy it now. Go to Gumroad. Horn noise. What's it? Yeah, Brooks. Thank you, buddy. So yeah, I've been working on that. So I haven't been working on this, but I've been thinking a lot about this particular piece. I had done a little like color study. I became recently completely obsessed with dragonflies, and I just my wife and I went out to go get some ice cream, and we sat by a little pond and we looked out and watched this dragonfly like hunting over the surface of the water, and the way that it moved, and just the shapes and the I don't know. I just became like really interested in everything to do with it. So I wound up watching like a super long documentary about the history and life cycle and of a dragonfly. They're crazy. Their larvae are so scary. Do I have a picture of that in here? I think I did. Yeah, here we go. This little guy in here with this horrible thing coming off of his jaw, that's the dragonfly larvae, and it's definitely the inspiration for in the movie Alien, where the alien's mouth has like the second like mouth within it. They 100% have been inspired by dragonfly larvae, which are just a total horror thing. And they live like for like a year underwater, like completely aquatic, which was wild. And then they hatch, grow wings, and fly away. And then at that point, water will ruin them. If they get too stuck in water, they'll never fly again and they'll die. Whoa, someone's gifting subs? Wow. Hey, Jay. AJ, you're very good. Love you, buddy. Thanks for being here. Anyways, I became completely obsessed with dragonflies, as you can tell. And I'll just walk you through some of the sketch process, because luckily Procreate saves that. So, let's see, how long is this? We got 10 minutes to talk about some of this stuff. So the first part of the process, sorry for the strobe lights. I'll take the Jellybots book advertisement down, and we'll move this back into its rightful place. The first process, I'm actually like right here, I've traced the reference photo to try and get a sense of the shapes. In a research phase for a character design, it's totally legit and valid to trace your reference. Use reference. One, I've heard from some people that they've been taught officially by like actual art school teachers like not to use reference, which is insane to me. Like, definitely use reference. And then trace it if you need to, just to get an idea for the flow and shapes of the creature. Then from that tracing, I moved on to iterating on those shapes, trying to streamline them, find my own, pushing them in the ways that I now understood them to relate. Once you understand the actual shapes of a character, it's much easier to begin to stylize it. If you're trying to understand how to make cool stylized wolf characters, try to really draw a real wolf as accurately as you can first, and then step away from that, add shapes, sort of increase the flow. So then once I had gotten that flow down, I started to think about different kind of creature ideas based on this, and I really wanted to explore possibly something more dragon than fly, something a little more horrific and intimidating. I took a little stop along the way to sort of explore like maybe more of a stylized kind of Spyro animation-y kind of dragonfly character with a little more kind of classic animated stylization, sort of anthropomorphize it. But I realized that wasn't what was grabbing me about them. I didn't like what that did to sort of move away from the shapes. So I was trying to get at, they're kind of scary. They're a little bit alarming. There's something about that I really love and was drawn to. But they're also beautifully streamlined. So I really dug into, okay, how can I make them scarier, more intimidating? Preserve some of that like viper-like kind of blade-like quality to the way that they're shaped. But I don't want to just make something scary and icky, because that's not fun for me to draw, to be honest with you. But I thought, okay, something huge, maybe to bring that dragon forward, I'll change the wings and actually add like dragon bat wings. The effect of dragonfly's kind of anatomy is that they have two sets of wings that move in sort of independently, but they move in sync. So I tried the bat wings out, and it just felt like, again, like it was kind of fun and cool to look at. But it was getting away from the alien streamlined quality. The bat wings kind of created more familiarity than I wanted. It's less aliens, definitely more, you see that a lot more often, so it wasn't as strange. But in trying to sort of push it that way, I tried to sort of texture those wings with the patterns you see on a dragonfly's wings. So stepping in there and adding the sort of stained glass style patterning that you see. And you will notice I did not draw that twice. Duplicate and liquefy, they are your friends. But once again, it was kind of getting away from the core of stuff that I like. And the thing I like as much as dragonflies is sort of aquatic life. I just think fish and sharks and anything under the water are just incredible. I can't articulate why, but that's another one of those things like, why do I like black mages? Why do I like autumn? Why do I like sea creatures? Like, I don't know. There's so many reasons, that it doesn't even feel meaningful to try and guess at one specific thing. But mixing a little bit of that shark kind of quality, giving him like a dorsal fin. And once I had that idea down and I was enjoying that, started to think about, okay, how can we twist this? How can we move it away from just a pure single creature design into something with a little more story behind it? So that's when we hit on the idea, and by we, I think I was doing this with some friends in a chat. So we were talking a little bit about other ways we could push this. And actually, with John Lauren coming on in about 20 minutes, that's a great, we could talk more about that, but having friends that you can bounce ideas off is great. So I started to think, how would you ride a dragonfly? Where would you sit? What would the saddle look like? And started to design this little character with their really long lance, like a little fairy type character with a long lance. But I didn't want to do a combat character. I think Clara, actually, who's in here somewhere, mentioned the mail delivery. So this turned very quickly. You can see a little envelope motif, and it's a hook. Thought about, what if this character was riding this really fast, kind of dangerous dragonfly to deliver packages to other little folk. I saw a question in there. Market for stylized art in the Canadian industry. Now, that's interesting. I don't actually work for a lot of Canadian clients. I work primarily remotely for American clients and European clients. There are definitely a ton of studios in Vancouver. My wife works for a place called Wild Brain, and they are actually involved in Lightbox. They have a booth in the Artist Alley. I think there's a huge market in Vancouver anyways, and I think in Toronto as well, maybe also in Montreal, the bigger cities. There's a lot of animation, and so there's a lot of work for people doing stylized design as well. Although I will say this, that there's not unions here, and there, at least to my knowledge, I think there's hope to get some of that off the ground, but the rates that people get paid are often not as great. I'm gonna just pause this for a second. Let's see, can I pause this? Yeah, I can if I just hold my thumb. I work with John. John and I, we'll get into that when he comes to visit. I won't tell his story before he arrives, but you heard I'm a digital nomad. I was. These days, I'm not a nomad anywhere, but I am very mobile because I work off of an iPad, and primarily I got the iPad because I started to long distance date the woman that is now my wife, Erica Schnellert. Met her on Instagram because we both loved art. We both share a faith, and so we started to talk. And I realized that I wanted to get to Vancouver as fast as I could, and I couldn't bring my Cintiq with me if I did that. So I decided to take a chance on an iPad Pro. And it was like the month that they came out. And didn't look back. So for a number of years, just wound up hopping back and forth 3,000 miles, doing travel. Went to Japan, went to Poland, just did a bunch of like traveling and speaking and drawing, and it was really, really fun. And now I don't fly anywhere. One, because I'm married and I'm quite happy to stay put, and two, because it's COVID times and it would be crazy. Too loud, the music? Okay, I'll turn that down a little bit. I don't know if Erica's in the chat. I think she might still be asleep or just like slowly coming to wake up. So here you're seeing I started a color study, obviously sped up, but really loose, just testing out because there's so many incredible colors that dragonflies come in. And I kind of really have been especially drawn to this sort of blue kind of aqua enamel and some of the blue and black patterning I thought was really striking. So I kind of began to settle on that for the color study. And that's, I think, where we're going to take this design this day. It's only 10, what? Oh yeah, it's still pretty early in the day. We're just getting started. How do people start dating through Instagram? I sent her a drawing of myself saying hello via DM. And she sent me a drawing of her saying hello back. And then we started sending little comics back and forth. And that is how I decided to propose. I'll take a break from this right now, since it just gets into sort of nailing down the specifics. I think I have them here. Just show you, because I'm proud of our little silly courtship stuff. Where did I store those? I did a bunch of when I proposed to her. I did that via DM. We were both sitting in the same room, but since that's how we met, I did a series of illustrations and sort of sent them over one by one. I can't find them right now at short notice, but it was really fun. We had a fun courtship. Courtship, weird. What do you call it when it's online like that? I mean, dating. I sound like once again an old timey fancy boy. We had a courtship. I am playing Pink by Janelle Monáe. Heck yes, it's a very good song. I'm just gonna keep nailing down this design. So now I'm gonna do this live, and we're gonna bring this thing to full color. I'm gonna talk about the design ideas, if that's okay with you guys. Does that feel good? You guys interested in this design, or let me know in the chat, because we got plenty of time ahead of us. We can do a lot of stuff today. Talk about all kinds of character design stuff today. Yes? Yes. Okay, cool. I'm getting yays. So right now what I'm doing basically is just tying down the specifics. A lot of this work I did beforehand. You've got the anatomy and kind of shapes of the dragonfly creature. Most of the ideas for the character are worked in. She's settled up there. She's in very thick clothing. The reasoning behind that, I was thinking, was like, it's just fun. I don't like doing, if it's a big piece like this and you have somebody mounted on it, it's not always super fun to draw tiny facial details. But also, because if you're on the back of this thing moving at great speed, the wind in your, the wind in your face is going to be so intense, and cold too, on your skin. So um, trying to think of how to phrase this. Like, it might be sort of more correct, and it depends on your context, especially if it's just for me. Um, you know, that's one thing. But since we're showing this to people and there's no context, you know, there's no video game, you know, where this is gonna like be interpreted in 3D and then they'll articulate the claw. It might be better to just do the hook, so that you see the silhouette and you intuitively, visually understand that much more clearly right off the bat. And I think that is usually a win design-wise. It's not, you know, if you're like a more technically minded person who really wants to like work out exactly how every clasp and an aspect of the design fits together, or find some innovation or idea that's new, there's space for that in character design, absolutely. But I do think sometimes you need to allow for the audience to see something they recognize that's familiar. So for instance, across the rider's design, I've added a pretty confusing helmet. You're not going to look at that and think, oh, it's a face. You know, the saddle has a relatively familiar kind of pommel at the front, but having a hand that's visible, because obviously this hand is like somewhere here, you know, in a lance, kind of holding, shielded by the lance itself, but it's holding on there. But having one hand, and there's going to be some reins I haven't drawn in, but I'll paint those in later. Having a visible hand gives you something as the viewer. You see the hand, and then you read the rest of the body. You know, if I removed this hand from the design, you'd really only have the feet to go by in terms of like, oh, I see what I'm looking at. It'll become clearer as you add color and stuff like that, but I think still you want to be conscious of what are those things that, you know, a viewer is going to be able to recognize immediately. We got a question. How easy is it to incorporate myself to the studio pipeline with the iPad? Do I use the Photoshop with studio work? No, I mean what I say when I say I'm full-time on the iPad for the last 5 years. Every single piece. That means every single piece for Spyro, every piece for Crash, every book cover. So the Spyro art book cover, all the work in the Delibots book. It's all Procreate on the iPad. So the way that I don't even if it were to come down to like having to pass layered files back and forth, people don't need super high res work from me, generally speaking. From a character designer, you don't need crazy amounts of detail. You need the ideas really clearly presented. You need rough sketches, you need turnarounds, you need all kinds of drawing work, you know, but that could easily be photographs of a sketch pad. You know, I could do that in watercolor if I wanted to. I see some questions popping up about shape, and I've been trying to find a couple different ways to explain this recently, so I'm going to try that out right now. The short answer, though, to the question about do I use the iPad for studio work is I definitely do. Why do I have a weird... Do I have a reference layer? That's strange. Why was that? I must have drawn... Oh, I did Rains. That's what it is. Okay. All right. Let's talk about shape. Shape in character design. How it interfaces with design is a little bit more nuanced, and maybe we can talk about that as we go, but just talking about shape flow in general. Felipe, I believe some people have been answering that question in the chat a bunch. File resolution, 3500 by 2500 pixels, but if you guys could keep... If that question keeps popping up, I would love if you guys could keep answering that in the chat. One second. Let me take a sip. I'm getting dry. Casey, yes. Sorry. I should have posted the schedule or whatever for people. Claire's coming in at 1 p.m. PST. John Lawrence coming in in 1 minute. So actually, let me set up that call with John. Just realized, and then he and I can talk about shape, because John's a great one for shape. So let's see. Let me turn off the music. Okay, just bear with me. I've not done this live on stream before. So we're just going to get the call going with Mr. Lauren. And then see how things go. Where are you, John? John Lauren. Okay, there he is. He's here. One moment. Let's get him aboard. And actually, this is going to mean that I take my face off the stream. Bye. And we are going to add John. Oh no, that's my wife. John. John is here. There he is, and I'm gonna start this voice call. Hello, John. Let's see. Just bear with me. One moment as we set up.
Hey,
this
buddy,
call.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let's see. Speak. Say your words, beautiful friend.
Testing.
Yes. Your voice is in the
Microphones.
stream. This is very good.
All right.
All right. And how's your screen set up?
I don't think I've done it right yet. Hold on.
Let's share screens, my friend. Let us cross the
Oh,
streams.
okay. I'm gonna share my second monitor, and that way
Yeah.
I can pull files in and out or whatever we gotta do.
Perfect. You guys hear him? That's awesome. They all hear you. John Lauren does have a voice. The reclusive John Lauren.
I exist.
He exists. All right.
Maybe.
I see. Let's see. Your monitor, but it's a very small window swimming in space. Can you make that larger?
How about now?
That looks better. Okay. Oh, no, I don't want to. Sorry, guys. Troubleshooting really quick before we get his video stream going. I'm pretty sure I can just. We'll do John Lauren. Okay. Test. Boom. You're in, homie.
I'm in.
Yes.
Hey. Cool.
Oops. Wait. I made it too small. Come on, Discord. Work with me.
So I'll just whatever
funny.
I'm working on, I'll keep it like super full screen, I guess.
Yeah, if you can, if that's all right.
Yeah. Because I figure it'd be easier than like sharing a particular document and then closing it, and that could be a disaster. So.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. All right, draw away, and let's just make sure that that's coming through on the stream.
All right.
Sorry, everybody, for the jankiness of setting this up.
I think we did all right. I'll draw
so.
a picture of you as a
Oh.
test.
All right, well, touche. I'll draw a picture of you. Oh, I just hit the layer cap. Oh, that's too funny. All right. I would hit a layer cap like midstream. That totally would happen. Is happening. Has happened.
All right. Are we working? Ready to do this?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Can you see the chat? If you're on Twitch?
Yeah, I pulled up the Twitch so I can see the chat, and I can see my beautiful portrait of you on the right side.
Trying to you draw yourself with a baseball cap a lot these days, right? So
True.
we'll do that.
I often have a cap on.
What's your nose like, John? I haven't seen your nose in a long
My
time.
nose like, oh, it's beautiful. I don't know. That is fairly long, maybe. I don't know.
Upturned at the end?
I wouldn't say so. I haven't done many self-portraits. I haven't done many self-portraits. Maybe I should.
The one that you use as your user profile picture is very charming and very good.
It's pretty spot on. I make that face a lot.
It is. It is. There you go. There's my John Lauren.
I have a beard now because
Oh right, quarantines.
trapped in. Yeah, exactly. That's easy. That's an easy fix.
There we go. Oh yeah, especially for me. I mean, throwing a beard on a white
It
dude.
would be an effort for you not to put a beard on somebody.
That's 100% accurate. How's it going over there, man?
It's going great, man. I'm really thrilled to be doing this. I am honored to be asked, and I'm excited to hang out with you. It's been a long time.
It has been. So why don't you just sort of hold forth and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Oh my goodness.
Catch up the chat.
So I'm John Lauren. I'm a friend of Nick's from forever ago, probably 10 years ago.
Oh jeez.
I know. Nick and I have worked together a lot on a lot of different projects going back over those 10 years. We did Dawngate Chronicles, and we did Wingfeather and Spyro and a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, you just keep popping up, and it's great.
It's true.
Yeah. So
We met at the
I'm now making picture books. That's the big thing I'm doing now is I'm doing picture books. But I also, I've been a freelance illustrator for about 6 years, and before that, just a big variety of animation and video game and illustrations type stuff.
Let's see if I can. Oh wait, no, there's too many frames. Let's delete that frame. Ooh. There we go. Now I have a John talking animation.
Oh, that's excellent. That's perfect.
It was an attempt. An attempt was made. Let's not do that though. Um, yeah, so we met at 38 Studios way back in the day. Um, and at
True.
that time you were an animator.
I was a 3D animator professionally at that point. Yes.
So you've been on like quite a journey in the time since.
Yeah. I mean, I was an avid draw drawer at the time as well. But yeah, my my professional gig at that time, and it was probably my first like large studio gig
Mm.
was animating,
Uh,
which I really enjoy. I really love animating, but I kind of had to narrow my field of focus a bit. And for anyone who hasn't done 3D animation, there's a lot of sort of technical setup and back end that I was not good at. So I was very dependent on the tech artists, and it was like illustration is something I can do, on a smaller scale by myself if I need to. So
mm.
that's one of the reasons I sort of went that way. Plus, I really sort of missed color. Maya is very gray.
Yeah, it really is. It was brutal. I did not enjoy my
I used to
limited
tint all
encounters.
I would go into my display settings, and I like change like shadow color and background color, and I every week I'd like have a color theme and like within the interface. So
Are you drawing by the way? Because I don't see.
I
Oh,
haven't
okay.
started yet. I didn't know if I should dive in or what.
I'm just doodling a little bit while we're chatting.
Okay.
Just
I
kind of.
brought I brought two pictures, so because I figured I could do both, or you could pick one.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's right. We had a couple options going when they last spoke.
yeah. Let's see what we
Um,
got here. Yeah. So I
what
could
are?
do either one.
Oh man, those
There's
both look
similar
pretty.
compositions because I was in like a vertical composition mood. I've got your goblin option. I've got your pumpkin option. So we can we
These
can
are
go
the
in.
stereotypes perfectly represented.
I mean,
Goblins
you
get
you
pumpkins.
you lampooned me for it, and then I was like, yeah, that's correct.
There it is.
That's what we're gonna
If you want
that's
your
what we're gonna
goblins
do.
or you want your pumpkins, John Lawrence got you covered. Step
Yeah.
one down to John's pumpkin goblin shop.
And this actually does speak a little bit to the difference in our processes. Is that like, um, you know, these are extremely messy sketches, and I am one. I will jump into like blocking color long before I resolve the sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas as a draftsman, you tend to make a beautiful line drawing before you move on to color. So
Oh, those are great though. Can you zoom in on the left one, the pumpkin folk?
yeah.
I love seeing how loose that is. It's so good.
I mean, this is maybe as tight as I ever sketched. I actually overdid it because I knew I was
This is
I was coming here.
for the sake of everybody in the chat. You've
I was
tightened
like,
up.
I need to at least have recognizable like objects in the sketch so it's not boring. Um, I mean, I'll even sketch with the lasso tool sometimes.
Will you really?
Yeah,
Oh wow.
I'll just skip the lines occasionally.
Wow, we really do have very different approaches to that. And yet,
Yeah.
so one of the questions that had just come up before you hopped on was about shape in character design, which I was going to speak to a little bit, but I thought that would be actually awesome for you to speak to as well because you are like a master of really pushing shape. And with
Oh,
these
well,
these
thanks, man.
pumpkins, I'm seeing even in the sketch, you have a really strong flow going. Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, I grabbed this piece partially because of shape, but also because this piece I'm working on is like a sequel to this piece from a couple of years ago with the same sort of like the same characters and world and stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, let's talk about shapes, man, because I tend to sketch, as you can see, really fast. Like
Could you
like I think
shake your window a little bit because I'm getting some artifacts from like it's I don't know if you can see it on screen. There's like a lot of
is that any better?
it's a bit chunky. I wonder what's accounting
Oh,
for
I'm
that.
sorry about
Did we
that.
troubleshoot this earlier? Is it like a certain type of screen share? Was it like a windowed share?
I think it's like if I don't check back into the Discord share, it scrambles a bit.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Anyways, yeah, sorry. Let's keep going with shape though, because it looks like it's cleared up a little bit.
Yeah.
So how do
Oh,
you
I was just gonna
approach?
say that yeah, so I'll approach shape like I draw very fast actually. So like there's a lot of sort of I don't know, it's almost like physical gesture or momentum I find in like the shapes that I'm drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Definitely.
like I'm sort of like riding the motion in my hand more so than I'm like trying to pick out something very precise that I've planned ahead, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
And then there's definitely certain, I think, and this gets into style. I think there's certain patterns, right, of like variation. Like something I'll try to avoid ever is repeating a series of shapes of the same size. You know what I mean? So it's like I've in some ways tried to train myself to always go like big to small or small to big, that kind of stuff. Like just because of my taste and my approach, it's I'm always looking for um, exaggerated variation over someone who might work more with sort of like patterns or structure.
Mm-hmm. What I talk about a lot these days, I've been trying to find ways to articulate sort of how to formally to discuss kind of rhythm of shape, and
Yeah, it's really tough.
right, like it's there's so many things that we do that are just that become intuitive, um, uh, because you just do it so often and so frequently, and you just kind of feel your way through a pattern of shape. Um, but trying to explain what it is you're seeing can be really hard. So what I'm trying to do here is kind of draw over the flow. But one of the things that occurs often to me is this like barcode principle. I don't know if we've talked about this before or not, but the
Uh,
idea that like
I think I know where you're going, but I don't think we have officially.
um, the idea that instead of sort of setting up, see, it's even hard for my hand to do this, like a rhythm of shapes that are even, like the prison bars at the bottom here,
Mhm.
establishing a rhythm that's more like a barcode, where there's like medium, slightly thinner, thinner than that, very thin, big thick, medium thick, thick again, thin, kind of mixing it up in a way that confuses the eye just a little bit, kind of keeps things flowing, um, as
Yeah.
opposed to keeping things even. And so like when I think about, I'm looking at like your pumpkin character, so you've got like a large shape, and then the neck is very thin, and then you're breaking it out into a shape like the rhythm between like big head, medium neck length, then like long torso shape, and yours is actually much more bold than mine. As opposed to
What can I say?
if you kept those like super similar in length,
Yeah, for sure. And I
you
mean,
would
I
get
think part of that is they're just like there is more care or attention to naturalism in your body of work, right? Like part of it is sort of like me being flippant with reality. But I agree, and like the thing that I like, the example I always go to with something like this is, it's like I'll tell someone like you do with the barcode, like line up like 9 of those and try to look at them once and count them, and you absolutely can't, because it's like the fact that you've got like even spaced patterns the same size, it becomes a pattern. Like you lose count, like you lose focus on how it breaks apart.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I don't particularly know why that is, or I can't really explain it necessarily, but
mm.
that's sort of the way that our brains are processing series and stuff like that. So when you're trying to create like interest, it comes down to contrast, just like almost everything in illustrating, right? It's if you're trying to create contrast, a regular pattern is almost the same as like a solid color.
Totally, exactly. A solid color that just kind of blends into one field, and you don't even notice it. You're just kind of, it becomes
Yeah.
invisible.
And
And then when you add an irregular shape into the middle of that solid field, it pops, becomes the focal point.
and you can use it to your advantage too. It's not like I'm saying that regular patterns are a bad thing or like universally should be avoided. It's that they can be used specifically for their own good reasons that help out your cause, right?
Totally,
It's like
exactly.
you can control that spacing for the focus point you need. Not that you should always avoid it or always use it.
I was trying to show by example here. Let me just clear up some layers so I have some options here. For the dragonfly piece that I'm doing right now, right underneath all of this, there's like a central spine, right, and that kind of drives all the shapes. Um, the large area of the back here, it happens to be that like this is a great place to like create a focal point, because you can create a large um, area where you can set your character and they can pop from that, right? So you have kind of a platform, you've set the table for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the energy of this arc kind of drives all the shapes, um, and the sort of swoop of the sort of U. And so like the energy of the wings is creating a V that's going down. The jaw creates a V. All the V's, like as they turn here, kind of tend to point down towards the head, and in towards the character. But the stuff
Yeah.
that's coming up this arc, these V's tend to indicate the energy moving up that way before it turns the corner and comes over. So like the spine of something, for me anyways, is like what drives a lot of that. But then within that, once you have that, you're creating like a large sort of empty space, and then a lot of like small kind of detailed spaces in here to kind of, now that you've set up like a big open shape, using like really small high contrast shapes will draw focus within that. And then once you've created this, you can frame it with sort of, the plating that comes down here is more high frequency detail, and the bags that kind of, kind of frame this space. So you're creating like a bunch of detail, as you go around it, a big open space. It acts as like a border for like a bunch of detail. Does that make sense? Is that sort of?
Yeah, I'm just so I didn't chime in there. Someone told me I should screen my window instead of my actual screen, and we would lose the artifacting.
Yes, let's
problem.
do that. Yeah, let's try that.
So I just switched over, and I'm just sharing.
That's much better.
I'm just sharing the. I apologize for that, guys. I was hoping I could pull in some other files if I needed to, but if I do, I'll just drag them onto here.
Perfect.
Thank you to the chat for resolving that. That's my bad.
Thank you guys a lot. Really appreciate that. Sorry, this is a bit janky. We're just kind of working out this whole format. But hopefully, if this goes well and we are able to like figure out how to do this reliably, it's something we can do more of in the future if people like it.
For sure.
So I see that a lot in your work too, where you're creating like basically you've created. If you zoom out of the piece you're looking at right now, you've created like a lot of detail in the ground that kind of leads up to the pumpkins. But then you break, and the sky is this big open space where the smaller frequency detail of them leads up to the focal point right in the middle, which is great.
Yeah. No, and it's funny when I envisioned this piece and I was like, oh, I want to do this piece about these creepy pumpkin cyclopses. I had envisioned doing a night scene, right? And I was like, I'll do a night sky, and I'll have like orange uplight. And then once I built this out, because I wanted I'll show it later, I guess, but like I wanted to have a foreground element, right? And I was like, and so so you can see it like here, it's like I drop in, if you lose that value and you lose the silhouettes of the small figures up top, then it completely changes sort of like the weight of the piece. And I was trying to do this sort of bottom heavy composition, and the frequency of those figures at the top turned out to be more important than sort of the night color palette I had first been thinking of.
It's actually a perfect example of the barcoding we were just talking about, where the shape and thickness of the pumpkin heads, like you've varied the spacing between them just enough. And then also the thinner pumpkins kind of sit between a wide pumpkin, you know what I mean? Like you've created this like rhythm of thick and thin shapes. And,
to go into the story of the piece. So like, I'll show this just briefly for the example, right? So I did this piece 2 years ago, and it's like these little pumpkin kids, right? Are like in the council of the Pumpkin King or whatever, right? And he's this big scary guy. Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't have like a really tight story for this. I'm just sort of like riffing on the follow-up. But so this one is like, okay, I have the kids now, and this is when they're like out in the wilderness being like chased. This is very like get off the road Frodo moment, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got okay, see this little kid's like pumpkin teddy bear right here.
He's found it.
We've got this. Yeah, so we've got this moment where these guys have found the pumpkin teddy bear, and so for the same reason, the barcoding goes across and it breaks up right here, and we have this big telegraphed pose of that spindly arm holding it dead center, right? And what I haven't done it yet because, like I said, I block before I do anything really, but in the end, we'll go in and we'll pull these dark values out, and we'll hit this bear with like the reddest,
yeah, buddy.
Like the orangest, reddest thing in the entire frame. Perfect. Is going to fall in a sliver right alongside of this little pumpkin teddy bear. Same thing.
One thing I'm seeing right now.
A little bit here on the underside of the face, but no, go ahead, man.
Oh, I would pop that bear just below his arm a little bit too, because right now it's like a bit of a tangent with his
he's like bicep. The silhouette. Yeah.
Because that really will break the shape up right where the contrast is highest, and just give you another vector for just locking.
Yeah, he needs like focus. Plus he needs a big pumpkin head, because then if he has like a little face, you can actually see it, right? Like he has a little.
Is it a stuffed, like the bear is a pumpkin too?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Perfect. I love it.
Obviously.
I love it. But actually, I mean, speaking to tangents there, we bring this up a lot in our work as we pass it back and forth. What a tangent does in an instance like that is, even though you've set it up to be this perfect like center of focus, it melds it with the other shapes, in a way that you don't immediately read it as separate. Now that the head is breaking the silhouette, you can't look away.
For sure. And this is kind of exactly what we're talking about here is it's the stage of refinement I probably do in silhouette and you probably do in line. You know what I mean? Because I will tend to compose just like the basic composition of my scene, I will do in line. And then like the confusing parts, I'll basically workshop and resolve in this stage, sort of, not entirely, but sort of pre-lighting, and before I render everything.
That makes a ton of sense, and that's still a completely valid way to approach it. I think both ways, right? Like you could easily, you're solving the same problems. I think you're just doing it in a different order, right?
And there are sort of like side effects in the output as well, right? Like like your work, it has really clean edges. It has almost no brush artifacts, right? Whereas like if you look at my stuff, it's like made of brush artifacts. I'm just fond of them. I like them. I like the energy of that
Absolutely.
look. And I think it's partially due to the kind of like the relative speed at which I work, which is actually like very fast, in terms of like physically very fast.
That's awesome.
Not particularly careful,
Right.
I look very carefully. I will, when I'm done painting, I flatten my image, I send it to my phone, and I'll just stare at it for a while. I'll flip the canvas. Like I do all that stuff separately, really, than from the actual brushing process. And then I'll redline it and I'll go back into it.
That's actually like when I do illustration work, I tend to work a little bit more in the way that you do, because I'm solving different problems than with design work.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like character design stuff, it tends to be always tighter, and I'm not paying attention to, because I really like the brush artifacts you're getting as well. And I like with projects like Maleficent, and the stuff that we've worked on together, like the Dawngate stuff, where we've like directly collaborated, those tend to have more of that, like it's like a sculptural process where you're essentially like pushing light and shape around all at once, kind of moving it one way, moving it the other way, instead of like a strategic process, which I think like the design process I'm demonstrating today tends to be more strategic in nature, where you're approaching
it's true for sure
with like a plan ahead of time, like okay, I see, and we'll move a little blue man over here, and then a little green man over here, and then we shall get all the Instagram likes at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, really, it's funny, like you say that when I am doing character design work, I kind of have to take a step back and remind myself about what you just said, right? Because I'm so used to working in a case where I'm often designing characters and sort of like putting them in a context, in a mood, that I'll do a lot of designing during that, and I have to remind myself when I'm doing character design to kind of think about it a different way. Like I think I design better in like a pose or like a moment than I do in sort of like something stiff.
I'm losing your window here. Sorry, I'm just gonna try and cinch you over.
Oh, that's probably my fault. I'm probably pulling my canvas in a weird way.
Sure, I'm just trying to find a happy medium so that we both have it all clearly. Yeah, but we've both done like a ton of both. But I think that you have emerged as like the illustrator and me more the character designer, right? Even though when we first collaborated, we were doing like mostly comic stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly now, like now that I'm illustrating books, and that's such a huge task that it's with the exception of like Crash, that's all I did last year was book illustration. So that certainly has picked up a lot for me on my like just doing sequential narrative scenes and everything.
Totally, yeah. Do you find that when you switch over to things like design, like with Spyro, you did a bunch of the Nork designs. Do you find that that process is frustrating, like the shift?
The only part of like a really rigorous character design process that is frustrating for me is doing a lot of iteration if I already have something I'm into. Like I love exploring options and stuff, but once I find something I really like, I have got a bad poker face and being like, or we could make it a square. Like once I picked, I'm like, here, we're done.
You did it, guys. Both, man.
And luckily with Spyro, they were very like open to us taking stuff in cool directions that maybe they didn't initially ask for. And so it was actually, that whole process was, that and Crash both just such a blast. Because I mean, even with Crash especially, we got to sort of invent things that trickled to other parts of the pipeline. Even
totally.
We'd be like, well, what if this happened? And they'd be like, you know what, we could probably do that. Like, oh my gosh! So you sort of got to like touch other parts of the game just through the coincidences of designing the layouts and some of the characters and objects and stuff. So
Oh gosh, I love that stuff when
cool.
that works out. That's like my favorite. And you know that about me, but it's just like when other departments get on board and you can kind of steer from the character design chair, you know.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
you know, it's way fun. Yeah, I wish we could talk more explicitly about some of the Crash stuff, but we definitely cannot.
I know. I almost said something. I was like, if I shouldn't.
Something sheep.
There's a cool sheep thing.
I think we could just say that. Somebody in the chat asked something. I just saw. Sorry, you guys. There's a ton of beautiful chat stuff going on while we're doing this, and it's hard to keep track of everything. But they were asking about sort of the influences that sort of have brought you to your art style, and obviously, you know, we both have different influences and a lot of stuff that overlaps. I think Enrique seems to be one of our main touchstones in terms of stuff together.
Absolutely.
I remember. So John and I met when he was an animator at 38 Studios. We both lost our jobs at the same time.
On more than one occasion.
On several occasions. We both wound up on Dawngate together. And initially I was doing character design for Dawngate, kind of a lot of skins for the characters. It's kind of a MOBA project. And then John and I wound up doing a comic together. We were doing a web comic that was launching page 3 times a week. And we really needed to move at speed. So when I thought about speed, I thought, oh man, John is fast as heck and definitely gifted, and we have a lot of like common ground. But I remember at the beginning of that project, one of the main things we had to do was kind of sync up our points of reference. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
I think I bought you an art book. That wasn't
you bought me the Prince of Egypt art book.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. But that was, I mean, it was a blast, and I think that at the end we sort of not only like had sort of synchronized some of our reference points, but you know, kind of expanded each other's palettes a little bit by kind of sharing that experience and some of the reference points. But I'm curious if you could speak like specifically to the artists who have influenced you and what it was that got you drawing to begin with.
Oh man, well, I'll start. My first influence I'll start with, because it's your channel, I'll say Nicholas Cole.
You don't need to do that.
no, I should say no, but I should point that out. Like when I start to talk about like how to like set up focal points and create sort of like cinematic direction for the eyes. That is something I for sure learned from Nick. So credit where it's due. In terms of like going way back, it's probably no surprise. Like probably more so than you, was coming from a direction of like comic strips and animation and cartoons and that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. With sort of like this like infusion of like Magic the Gathering, right? So
yes.
And it's, I think if you use that equation, you can look at my work and be like, yep, that pretty much sums it up, right? It's like yep. It's like I to this day I love silly cartoons. Like one of the reasons I started to get deep into painting is I was working at a little animation studio, and I really wanted to paint like the like the gross close-ups and like a SpongeBob or something when they show and I was like, yep, yes. I need to like figure out how to do this. Right. So that was awesome. One thing for me that was big was just cartoons and just being around animation long enough. Like all this stuff we're talking about now even sort of trickles across to those disciplines, right? It's all very connected, right? And I think my experience in those other fields actually pays off in a lot of ways, even when I'm just painting. And then, like I said, then I, my brothers were very into like RPGs and that kind of stuff, and so I just like had an abundance of fantasy art in my life, and really admired a lot of painters doing that kind of stuff, like Jesper and Tony DiTerlizzi, and like all that kind of like the really fun, whimsical fantasy painters, right? So
DiTerlizzi is like
my work is sort of
a great Venn diagram for us.
For sure,
because we're both so into. Sorry, go on. No,
it's fine. And so even now today, like I still have projects that sort of like lean more so one way or the other, but kind of between those two extremes. But I think that's kind of where I'm influence wise. It's kind of a collision of those things. Looking at this piece, you can just know like Scotty Young, Tim Burton type aesthetics.
Definitely,
probably deep for me. So
absolutely, yeah, you really sense it. But you bring your own. I mean, that's the other thing, is that you can't help but bring your own something else to it all, as you go. And sometimes that's just kind of a little bit the result of the clash of influences. But I think that it's also just, your hand has a natural quality, or the colors you gravitate towards kind of are very much your own. I picked a particular green for the banner I made for you for the stream because I was like
Yeah, it's
thinking about like there's John Lauren colors in my brain. You know what I mean?
for sure.
When I go near them on the color wheel or whatever, I'm like, oh, this is a John space that I'm in right now.
Yeah, I mean the other, like I said, I had two pieces here. The other one is probably that color. It's like it's like a very green with like a red orange pop at the top. That's
Yep.
probably exactly what you're thinking of.
Yep. Yep. Just filling in the gaps because I know that question was for both in the chat. You guys probably know a lot about my stuff because you've been here before, a lot of you. But also, actually, really started with comics in a big way, and I just when I was announcing the Jellybots book, Joe Madureira came and like commented on my Twitter post, my tweet, like I'm so excited, and I just had like a complete heart attack because I suddenly had that like Ratatouille moment where like I shrank back to like my 12-year-old self, and like I had to dig it up immediately, but I fully like traced his artwork from comics as a kid. I like
Same.
learned hands from Joe.
I was a big fan of